Welcome. Tonight we're going on a journey together, a journey through time, through the centuries, through the quiet moments and the gentle changes of a city that has stood beside a river for over 2,000 years. This is the story of Paris, but we won't rush. There's nowhere to be, nothing to do. Just listen and let the story carry you. We begin long ago, long before the grand boulevards, long before the monuments and the lights, before Paris was Paris at all. Close your eyes and imagine a river, the Seine, flowing quietly through green forests and open meadows. The water is clear, the air is fresh. There are no buildings here, not yet, just the river and the land and the sky. Let's go there now. It's a morning in the 3rd century before Christ. The sun is rising slowly over the river. Mist hangs low over the water. Everything is still, peaceful. On a small island in the middle of the Seine, there are people. Not many, a few dozen families. They live in simple wooden huts with thatched roofs. Smoke rises from their cooking fires, drifting up into the pale morning sky. These people call themselves the Parisii. They are fishermen, traders. They live with the river. When the water is low in summer, they fish. When it rises in winter, they move to higher ground. Life is simple, slow, connected to the seasons. The Parisii make coins from gold and silver. On these coins, they stamp the image of a horse, a symbol of freedom, of movement. They trade these coins with other tribes along the river. Fish for grain, tools for furs, pottery for iron. The days pass slowly here, one much like another. The river flows, the seasons turn, and the Parisii live their quiet lives on their island. But change is coming. In the year 52 before Christ, a Roman general named Julius Caesar arrives in Gaul with his legions. The Parisii resist. They burn their own bridges. They fight. But the Roman army is too strong, too organized. The resistance fails. The Romans don't destroy the settlement. Instead, they build. They always build. They create a new town on the left bank of the Seine, and they call it Lutetia, a Roman name, the town of the marsh. The Romans lay straight roads. They construct buildings from stone. On the hillside that will one day be called the Latin Quarter, they build an amphitheater, a forum, public baths where people gather to wash and talk and relax in the warm water. Life in Lutetia is quiet. The town is small, not grand like Rome, or even like Lyon to the south. But it's comfortable, safe. The Roman peace has come to the banks of the Seine. Imagine walking through Lutetia on a warm afternoon. The streets are paved with stone. You can hear the sound of water flowing through the aqueduct, the smell of bread baking, voices speak in Latin, mixing with the old Celtic tongue of the Parisii. In the baths, people are relaxing in the warm pools. Steam rises, someone laughs, the sound echoes gently off the stone walls. The centuries pass. The Roman Empire grows old. Slowly, quietly, it begins to crumble at its edges. In the 3rd century, Germanic tribes begin to raid across the Rhine. Lutetia feels the first tremors of change. The people abandon the left bank. It's too exposed, too vulnerable. They retreat to the island, the Ile de la Cité. They build walls around it, thick stone walls for protection. By the 5th century, the Roman Empire in the west is falling. One by one, the cities of Gaul come under new rulers, Germanic kings, Frankish warlords. But on the island in the Seine, life continues. The walls hold, the people endure. The Roman baths on the hillside fall into ruin. Grass grows between the stones, but on the island the town survives. waiting, breathing, ready for what comes next. We move forward now, through the centuries, past the fall of Rome, into the Middle Ages. It's the year 508. A Frankish king named Clovis makes Lutetia his capital. But the name is changing. People are starting to call it Paris now, named after those ancient Parisii who fished in the river so long ago. Paris is still small, still centered on the island, but it's growing, slowly. Churches are being built, made of wood at first, then stone. On the eastern tip of the island, where Notre Dame will one day stand, there's a Christian basilica. Inside, candles flicker. Monks chant their prayers. The sound echoes in the dim space, over and over, day after day, year after year. The Seine flows past the island. Boats drift by, carrying wine from Burgundy, grain from the north, wool, salt, timber. The river is the highway of medieval Europe. Everything moves by water, centuries pass. By the year 1000, Paris is becoming important. Kings are crowned here. The University of Paris is founded on the left bank. Students come from all over Europe to study, to argue about philosophy and theology in Latin. On the island, the old basilica is torn down. In its place, construction begins on something grander, a cathedral, Notre Dame de Paris. Imagine standing by the river in the year 1163, watching the first stones being laid. The work will take almost 200 years, 2 centuries of masons and carpenters, of sculptors and glassmakers. Slowly, stone by stone, the cathedral rises into the sky. Inside Notre Dame, when it's finally complete, the light is extraordinary. Colored light, streaming through enormous rose windows, red and blue and gold. The light falls on the stone floor in pools of color. In the vast space, voices echo, prayers, hymns. The sound seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Medieval Paris is not a clean city. The streets are narrow and muddy. Houses lean against each other, built of wood and plaster. Animals wander through the streets, pigs, chickens, goats. The smell is strong, but this is normal. This is life. On the island, space is limited. Every inch is used. Houses are built right up against each other. Guilds have their workshops here. Bakers, shoemakers, blacksmiths, the sound of hammering on metal, the smell of bread, the crackle of fires. On the bridges connecting the island to the mainland, there are shops, houses. The bridges themselves are small streets, lined with buildings. People live on the bridges, work on the bridges. The river flows beneath them, dark and slow. By the year 1200, Paris has perhaps 100,000 people. It's one of the largest cities in Europe. The king lives in a palace on the island, the Palais de la Cité. From here, the kings of France rule their growing kingdom. But most of life in Paris is not royal. It's ordinary. People wake with the sun. They work. They eat simple food, bread, porridge, vegetables, sometimes fish from the Seine. They go to sleep when it gets dark. No streetlights, only candles and firelight in the windows. The seasons turn. Spring brings rain and new growth. Summer is warm, sometimes too warm. Autumn brings the harvest. And winter is cold and dark and long. But always the river flows. Always the cathedral bells ring out the hours. Always life continues. We move forward again, into the Renaissance. It's the 14th century now. Paris is still growing, but growth brings challenges. The streets are overcrowded. Disease spreads easily in the cramped conditions. In 1348, the Black Death arrives, the plague. It sweeps through the city like a dark wind. Thousands die, then tens of thousands. The plague comes and goes in waves. Each time it leaves the city emptier, quieter. But Paris survives. Cities always survive. People always return. By the 15th century, the plague has passed. The population is growing again. New walls are built to protect the expanding city. Paris spreads beyond the island now, onto both banks of the Seine. On the right bank, the Louvre stands. At first, it's not a palace, it's a fortress, a castle with thick walls and towers, built to protect Paris from invaders approaching from the west. On the left bank, the university district continues to grow. Students fill the taverns, they argue, they drink, they copy manuscripts by candlelight. Knowledge is spreading, slowly, one handwritten book at a time. Then, in the mid-15th century, something changes everything. A man in Germany invents the printing press. Within a few decades, printed books arrive in Paris. Now knowledge can spread faster, ideas can travel, more people can read, can learn, can question. The Renaissance is blooming, not just in Italy, but here too, in Paris. The city is being rebuilt, slowly. The old wooden houses are replaced with stone, grander, more permanent. The kings of France want Paris to rival the great cities of Italy. They bring Italian architects, Italian artists. The medieval castle of the Louvre begins its transformation into a palace, stone by stone, year by year. It will take centuries to complete, but the vision is there, a palace worthy of kings. On the island, Notre Dame still stands, older now, its stones darkened by centuries of candle smoke, but still beautiful, still the heart of the city. Imagine walking across one of the bridges on a spring morning in the year 1550. The sun is warm, the river sparkles. Around you, people are going about their business. A woman sells flowers. A man guides a cart full of wine barrels. Children run past laughing. The air smells of bread baking, of wood smoke, of the river. Paris is becoming something new, something more than a medieval town. It's becoming a capital, a center of art and learning and power. But growth brings conflict, religious conflict. In the mid-16th century, the Protestant Reformation reaches France. The country splits between Catholics and Protestants. The division is bitter, violent. In Paris on August 24, 1572, something terrible happens. The St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. Thousands of Protestants are killed in the streets of Paris. The violence spreads across France. The city is stained with blood. It will take decades to heal, but heal it does, slowly, painfully. By the end of the century, a new king brings peace, Henri IV. He converts to Catholicism to unite the country. Paris is worth a mass, he supposedly says. Under Henri IV, Paris begins to transform again. New bridges are built. The Pont Neuf, the new bridge. Ironically, it's now the oldest bridge in Paris still standing. It's the first bridge without houses on it. Just a clean span across the river. A place to walk, to see the water, to see the city. Let yourself rest here for a moment. On the Pont Neuf, the water flowing below, the city around you. The 17th century arrives. Paris is becoming the Paris we might recognize today. King Louis XIII and his minister, Cardinal Richelieu, begin to shape the city. New neighborhoods, new squares. The Palais Royal is built, a grand palace with gardens where people can walk. But the real transformation comes under Louis XIV, the Sun King. Louis XIV loves grandeur. He loves power. He loves art and architecture and display. Under his rule, Paris becomes the most magnificent city in Europe. But Louis has complicated feelings about Paris. The city is crowded, dirty, hard to control. So he builds a new palace. Outside the city, at Versailles, Versailles becomes a center of power. The court moves there, the nobles, the government, but Paris remains important. It's still the largest city in France, still the heart of culture and commerce. In Paris, new buildings rise. The Louvre continues to expand. The Tuileries gardens are laid out. Formal, geometric, perfect. New hospitals are built. New churches. The cityscape is changing, becoming more ordered, more controlled. On the left bank, the Invalides is constructed, a massive complex for wounded soldiers. Its golden dome will become one of the landmarks of Paris. Gleaming in the sun, the streets are being paved, widened, cleaned. Slowly, Paris is becoming more livable, more beautiful. Imagine walking through Paris in the year 1700. The streets are still crowded, but they're better maintained now. There are new street lamps. Not many, but some. Enough that the darkness isn't quite so complete at night. Carriages rattle past, the wealthy in their fine clothes, the poor making way for them. There's always been this divide, rich and poor, noble and common, but the divide is growing wider. In the cafes and salons of Paris, people are talking about ideas, about philosophy, about politics. This is the age of enlightenment. Voltaire, Rousseau, Diderot. These men are questioning everything. The old ways, the old hierarchies, the divine right of kings. Their words spread in books, in pamphlets, in conversations. Ideas are dangerous. They can't be controlled the way buildings can be controlled, the way streets can be paved and ordered. The 18th century moves forward. Louis XIV dies. Louis XV takes the throne, then Louis XVI. Each king more removed from his people than the last. Paris continues to grow. By the 1780s, there are perhaps 600,000 people living here. The city sprawls. New neighborhoods spread outward, but the infrastructure can't keep up. In the poor neighborhoods, conditions are terrible. Overcrowded, unsanitary. People live 10 or 12 to a room. Disease is common. Food is expensive. Bread prices keep rising. In the wealthy neighborhoods, life is different. Elegant townhouses, private gardens, servants, silk and lace and carriages with polished brass fittings. The contrast is stark, impossible to ignore. Let the tension fade. Let it drift away. We're just observers here, watching from a distance. In 1789, the summer is hot and dry. The harvest fails. Bread prices soar. In the streets of Paris, people are hungry, angry. The old order is crumbling. On July 14th, a crowd storms the Bastille, an old prison and fortress, a symbol of royal power. The guards fire. People die. But the crowd overwhelms them. The Bastille falls. The revolution has begun. The years after 1789 are turbulent, chaotic. The monarchy is overthrown. King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, are executed. The guillotine falls again and again. In the Place de la Révolution, where the Place de la Concorde now stands, the blade rises and falls. Nobles, politicians, anyone suspected of being an enemy of the revolution. The streets run with blood. This is the reign of terror. But even this passes. Eventually, the violence exhausts itself. A new government forms. The Directory. It's weak, corrupt, unstable. Then in 1799, a young general seizes power. Napoleon Bonaparte. He crowns himself Emperor of France in Notre Dame Cathedral. a new empire to replace the old kingdom. Under Napoleon, Paris is transformed once again. He wants Paris to be the capital of Europe, the greatest city in the world. New monuments are built, the Arc de Triomphe, the column in the Place Vendôme, bridges, fountains, museums. Napoleon brings back treasures from his conquests, art from Italy, from Egypt. The Louvre becomes a museum, filled with masterpieces. But Napoleon's empire doesn't last. In 1815, he's defeated at Waterloo. He's sent into exile. The Bourbon kings return to the throne. Paris settles into an uneasy peace. The city grows. The population swells. By 1850, there are over 1 million people living here. The city is crowded. The medieval street pattern still dominates. Narrow, winding lanes. Dark. Easy to barricade. Easy for revolutionaries to control. And there are still revolutionaries. In 1830, another revolution. In 1848, another. The barricades go up. The cobblestones are torn from the streets to build walls. Blood is shed. Governments fall and rise and fall again. Paris is a tinderbox. Something has to change. In 1853, Napoleon III, the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, hires a man named Georges Eugène Haussmann, Baron Haussmann, his task to completely remake Paris. And that's exactly what he does. Haussmann is ruthless, efficient. He tears down the old medieval neighborhoods, the narrow streets, the ancient buildings. Thousands of structures are demolished. Entire neighborhoods disappear. In their place, he builds something new. Wide boulevards, straight lines, grand perspectives. The new streets are too wide for barricades. They can't be blocked by revolutionaries. Troops can march down them. Cannons can fire along them. But Haussmann creates something beautiful too. The boulevards are lined with trees. Elegant apartment buildings rise on either side. All the same height, all in the same style. Cream-colored stone, iron balconies, mansard roofs. This is the Paris we know today. Haussmann's Paris. Imagine walking down the Boulevard Haussmann on a spring afternoon in 1870. The trees are in bloom. Cafes line the sidewalks. People sit at small round tables, drinking coffee, reading newspapers, watching the world go by. Carriages roll past. Women in beautiful dresses, men in top hats. The city has become elegant, sophisticated, modern. New train stations are built. The Gare du Nord, the Gare de l'Est. Railways connect Paris to the rest of France, to the rest of Europe. People can travel faster now. Goods can move more easily. Paris is at the center of a growing network. The city is also modernizing in other ways. A new sewer system, gas lights, eventually electricity. The old chaos is being replaced with order, with efficiency, with light. In 1889, Paris hosts the World's Fair, the Exposition Universelle. To mark the occasion, a tower is built, a temporary structure made of iron. It's supposed to be torn down after the fair. The Eiffel Tower. At first, many Parisians hate it. They call it an eyesore, a monstrosity, but it stays. And slowly, people begin to love it. It becomes the symbol of the city. The late 19th century is the Belle Époque, the beautiful era. Paris is the cultural capital of the world. Artists flock here, Monet, Renoir, Degas. They paint the boulevards, the cafes, the Seine, the changing light. Writers come, Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Joyce. They sit in cafes and write about Paris and about themselves and about art. Paris is alive, vibrant, electric. This is the golden age. The 20th century brings change, war, innovation, loss, rebirth. In 1914, the First World War begins. Paris is threatened but never falls. The city endures. When the war ends in 1918, Paris is still standing, scarred but standing. The 1920s bring a new energy. Jazz, dance, fashion. Paris is the place to be. The party capital of Europe. But underneath there's fragility. The wounds of war haven't healed. In 1940, German troops march into Paris. The occupation begins. For 4 years, Paris lives under Nazi rule. Dark years, hungry years. But the city survives. In 1944, Paris is liberated. People dance in the streets. The nightmare is over. After the war, Paris rebuilds. Again. Always rebuilding. Modern buildings rise alongside the old. Glass and steel next to 19th century stone. In the 1960s and 70s, new projects transformed the city. The Montparnasse Tower, La Défense Business District, the Centre Pompidou with its exposed pipes and colorful exterior. Not everyone loves these changes, but Paris has always been changing, always evolving. The metro expands. Underground, a web of tunnels carries millions of people every day. Above ground, cars fill the boulevards. The pace of life quickens, but the Seine still flows. Notre Dame still stands, damaged by fire in 2019, but being rebuilt, always rebuilt. The Eiffel Tower still rises into the sky. Paris endures. Today, Paris is a global city, home to millions, a mix of old and new, ancient stones and modern glass, museums filled with masterpieces, cafes spilling onto sidewalks, the smell of fresh bread in the morning, the sound of accordion music in the metro. Paris has been many things over the centuries: a Celtic fishing village, a Roman town, a medieval capital, a Renaissance center of learning, a revolutionary crucible, an imperial showcase, an artistic haven. Through it all, the river has flowed, the Seine, quiet, constant, unchanging. Our journey is complete. We've traveled through 2,000 years, from mist rising over the river to the lights of the modern city, from wooden huts to glass towers, from silence to symphony. Paris has changed, but some things remain: the river, the island, the stones of Notre Dame, the spirit of the people who have lived here, century after century.